in the day when the Lord delivered up the Amorites before the children of Israel, and he said in the sight of Israel, Sun, stand still upon Gibeon, and thou, moon, in the valley of Ajalon. And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed, until the people had avenged themselves upon their enemies. Is not this written in the book of Jasher? So the sun stood still in the midst of heaven, and hasted not to go down about a whole day. And there was no day like that before or after it, that the Lord hearkened to the voice of a man, for the Lord fought for Israel. The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be unto God. From these few verses for a little while this evening, I want to talk to you from the simple subject, faith can suspend the rules. Faith can suspend the rules. Let me begin with this disclaimer that I do understand and believe in the sovereignty of God. When we talk about the sovereignty of God, it is the fact that God is able to do whatever God decides to do. There is none greater than him. There is no one else that can control him. God can do whatever it is he wants to do. I don't want you to spend time trying to figure out your past events, but really the purpose of our time together today is to challenge you to believe God against all odds. Look at somebody, say, believe God against all odds. When we talk about rules, we begin with this factor, this principle, this dynamic, that when you look at the word rule, rules can be defined as a principle or condition that customarily governs behavior. Anytime you have some idea of how things are to be, it is because of the working of rules. All rules also can be defined as something regarded as a normative example, meaning that is typically how things transpire. For a third way is that rule can be defined as a basic generalization that is accepted as true and that can be used as a basis for reasoning or conduct. When we talk about rules, we're talking about how things should work. And how would it be if every time you tried to do something, it didn't work the same way? Right. It would be not only confusing, but it would be frustrating. Has anybody ever had an old vehicle that you were trying to work with, and it had challenges when you had to do extra things to get it to start? You had to pat, turn, pull, tuck, and then hopefully it would turn on and start. Maybe some of you never lived that way, but you remember Sanford and Son, when Fred would go over to the y'all ain't with me. And he had to tap, he put the elbow in the secret door and open. Everybody couldn't do it because it took someone that knew how the rules operate. Rules are there so you can have some normalcy to how things are going. If one day you were to drive out of your driveway, out of your parking area at home, and the street had been changed in direction one way, and it would change everything in how stuff works. So rules are in place in order to bring order, but also to bring some level of normalcy. It has been often said that rules are made to be broken. Now, that's somewhat challenging because rules being made to be broken would seem to indicate that it is never a benefit to have rules. But rules yet have benefits. Number one, rules allow you to keep order. Anybody remember those days in which you were in elementary school, middle school, or high school? They told you no running in the halls. Or when you had to get a bathroom pass to get out of class to go use the restroom. There are rules in order to keep things going a certain way. Rules not only keep order, but rules eliminate chaos. And rules bring structure. People that have problems with rules are people who have problems with structure. Structure is important because structure is needed in order to bring about definition and to allow you to begin to figure out or plan how things would take place. What would you do if you were to walk into a store and they told you that your $20 bill was only worth $10 in that store? That's a problem. You're going to leave and you're going to say, wait a minute, y'all trying to get over on me, because you understand that the rule says if it says $20 on the bill, it's supposed to be normative, and that's how much it's worth. And so rules have benefits because they keep order, they eliminate chaos, and they bring structure. Rules are found in every area of life. There is the law of stewardship, the fact that what God gives you is not your own. That you are just a steward to be in charge of it and to manage it, not according to your perspective, but according to how He desires things to be managed. That's the law of stewardship. There is the law of sowing and reaping. If you sow it, you're going to reap it. Whether that's good, bad, or indifferent. It is a law. If what goes up must come down. That's the law of gravity. There's also the law of friendship. He that desires friends must first show himself friendly. It's a law. You're not going to have friends being closed up and nasty. You're not going to have friends being negative and full of animosity and strife. So rules are able to give us some benefits. There's also the law of nature, the fact that there is the rising and setting of the sun in which we center our timing around 24 hours in the day, and how the sun moves and how the sun transpires. The Bible is full of examples of faith suspending rules. What do I mean by faith suspending rules? The Bible is full of opportunities in which you find something that should not happen happening because of the exercising of faith. Faith, it gives you the ability to, even though the rule exists, faith enables you to tap into a God that not only is above the rules, but established the rules. I don't know if you ever played games like this as a young child, but every now and then I used to watch my girls when they were younger, and they would be playing together and things would be going well in how they were participating. But oftentimes I would notice that if the game started going away and one of them didn't like it, they would oftentimes try to find a way to change the rules. They want to change the rules midstream. It used to blow my mind to sit there and watch and listen to them from a distance and hear them playing and hear them doing this. And Kyla was this and Sierra was that and Keela was this. And then all of a sudden, because something didn't seem to go right, I said, wait a minute, let's change. Let's all be the good guys. Let's change. Let's let this be the opposite way. And it would take me back to my own childhood, in which you would change rules in midstream of the game for your benefit. Some of y'all did that when you were growing up. You changed the rules. Whoever wins this gets the prize. You lose, it's the best 2 out of 3. You lose 2, it's the best 3 out of 5. Now it's the best 4 out of 7. Because the idea was, you knew with rules they had regulation of how things would transpire. And because you were a part of the game and things were not going the way you desired, you would demonstrate this habit of attempting to change the rules. We as black folk know a little bit about rules being changed. You don't have to be old. You just have to have dealt with people in corporate America. You'll find out that as soon as you figure out what the rules are and you start to make progress, before you know it, the rules have changed. Lord have mercy. As long as you didn't know the rules were, you had to have worked here X number of years and you could be promoted. That's what they're operating. But when you got a day away from that deadline, that mark, all of a sudden something is passed in the mail, the corporate mail, that says now the rules have changed. Rules changing can be frustrating, but rules changing can bring benefits. Even those of us that are athletic fans, you can understand that when you watch professional sports today, rules have changed. We're in the midst of the NBA Finals getting ready to start. It used to be, now what they call the European step, used to be called traveling. I'm sorry, I guess I don't have no ballers in the house. Thank you, Brother Wade. You understand? Now you can sidestep, take 2.5 steps, and they don't call it because it's a European step. Things have changed. Rules have changed. It used to be that when you were a certain way, they expected stuff to be a certain dynamic. But as rules begin to change, things begin to change. But I'm not talking to you tonight about merely changing rules for your own personal gain or for your personal benefit. But I'm talking about your exercising of faith that causes the God of the rules to suspend his own rules. Now, why do I declare suspending versus changing? Because if you change rules, then it becomes a different rule. But when you suspend them, you say the rule still stands, but for this instant, we're working from a different perspective. And the Bible is full of moments in which faith has suspended the rules. We see with Elisha, when the axe head begins to float, nobody expects metal to float to the top of the water. That's a suspension of the rules. When Moses stretched out his rod to part the Red Sea, it was a suspension of the rules. When Moses slapped the rock with his stick and water came out, nobody expects water to come from a rock. A rock is a hard, dry object. By its definition, it does not have water. But when the prophet, man of God, smote the rock, water comes out of the rock. Jesus, his first miracle, he turned water into wine. He doesn't even touch it, does not put his finger in it. He does not spin. He just says, go pour. Get these gallons of water and go pour it out and give it to them. And all of a sudden, what should have been the worst wine becomes the best wine, because the wine undergoes a suspension of natural rules. Gideon defeats the Midianites with only 300 mighty men of valor. There is no way he should have won that battle except God suspended some rules. The Jericho walls fall down not because Israel put any TNT dynamite next to it. No C4. They did not have an articulate, thought out strategy, but the walls fell down because they walked around in obedience to God and shouted with the voice of triumph. So what am I telling you tonight? That God had an uncanny ability, dare I say a reputation, that says when his people begin to operate in faith, God finds a way to suspend rules of regular engagement. Lord, somebody should get happy about that, because you mean to tell me, yes, that's what I'm telling you. When you learn how to operate in faith, God will begin to suspend normal rules, because God is always moved by the faith of his individuals. Tell somebody, God's moved by your faith. That is what moves God. That is what gets God's attention. It is not by your demonstration of calisthenics. It is not by the fast pace of your prophetic praise unto God. But it is your exertion of faith that begins to move God to work on your behalf. Even though the Bible is full of examples of faith suspending the rules, our text here of Joshua chapter 10 is one of the most profound and drastic examples of rules being suspended. The Bible lets us know that several kings have come together and they are in opposition against the people of Israel. And the Lord declares unto them, do not fear. God tells them, have faith, because they have been delivered into your hands. Now notice, God did not say have faith because you've already won. God did not say have faith because they're not really there. God said have faith because of what I have told you is going to happen. That's what we have to understand when it comes to trusting God. It is not that I'm making up things to believe, but my faith has to be anchored in what God has already said about my situation. situation. Tell somebody, ask somebody, what has God said about your situation? That is the question. And how do you find that out? By getting in the Word of God, spending time with